evening, everyone. Welcome to a special edition, Halloween edition of the Nick Files. I am your host, Nick Muley. Uh, man, do I have a creepy episode for you guys tonight? And I thought this was one that was going to be relatively suitable as the official Halloween special. But just before we get to it, I just want to say real quick, I apologize that I'm running definitely a few minutes over time, uh, longer than I was initially anticipating. For starters, I was intentionally planning on starting around 5 o'clock instead of the typical 4:30 because the slideshow that I have, although it's going to be a really creepy one, it is going to be relatively short. So this episode will probably last no more than maybe the entire presentation might be no more than about 45 minutes at the very most. It's not like some of the other slideshows, which usually will last over an hour or so. But at the same time, though, like I said, this is a very spooky and very unsettling story. We are going back in this case to the realm of haunted locations. In this case, I don't really do this very often with a lot of locations, but the location that I'm going to be presenting is actually a private location. So therefore, I'm telling you right now, this is not a place that, you can go visit or anything like that. And yes, I kind of had the opportunity myself, but even though we were only there for a second, I actually feel like I may have paid the ultimate price for not necessarily visiting this place, but what was inhabiting this house. And that's what I'm going to be talking a little bit about near the end of the slideshow. But real quick, just before we get started, I just want to give the shout outs that are coming in. Big old Tom's in the house. What's up, Natalie? Good to see you. Hello, Charles. Good to see you as well. Yeah, I know. Well, don't forget, Tom. I mean, I know I can take as much time as I need on BB3 TV, but you also have to remember too, I'm broadcasting on a number of different paranormal networks, and I know at least two networks. They got two shows right after me, so I'm not going to make it quick. It's just that it's not a very long presentation. Hello, Rita. Good to see you. So the location that I'm going to be showing you, like I said, one of the very few that's a residential. The only time that I've ever really done, this is only probably the second time thing I've ever done, focus on a residential location. The only other one that I've ever done in all the years that I, have been doing this show, which obviously it's a location that's so notorious on the other hand, is undoubtedly the Amityville Horror. So, and also if you want to put the house where the exorcism of Roland Doe occurred. So it's the only two times I've ever really done residentials. But this place, it's a location that it has. This is a location in northeast. I'll say in very least in northeastern Ohio, with such a terrible past, both in its history and for the activity. Obviously, again, I'm not allowed to really reveal exactly where it is, but its shocking history may stun, definitely has stunned a number of people who ever lived in this terrifying house. And believe it or not, even though it is again a residential location, this house has even been featured on an episode of Paranormal Witness. In fact, the name of the special is named after the episode. I don't know if you guys have ever remembered that episode. It was the second episode of the fourth season of Paranormal Witness, which was called, ironically, Nightmare on Chestnut Street, which to me is probably one of the most frightening episodes that they've ever made. I'll be honest with you. I watch a lot of paranormal shows, and usually a lot of them don't really bother me that much, especially when you see like the first-hand account ones where people are being interviewed. They have like the dramatizations, that kind of stuff. But there was just something about this one that really scared the hell out of me, and this one really bothered me a lot. If you guys have seen that episode, I will say one thing. Definitely took a while for me to open doors in dark hallways after that. It really scared the hell out of me. And to this day, I still have not rewatched that episode. That's how scared. That's how bad it affected me. Let me just see what Tom says. Well, if you need to make a second show on BB3 TV after this one, I appreciate it, Tom. Thank you. But like I said, this is not going to be a real long slideshow, so I really don't need that much time. But either way, like I said, this is quite a scary story for you guys. So, without further ado, let's get right down to business. So, I always, because it's been a while since I've been doing this, I always got to make sure that the slideshow is showing. So, bear with me for just a second. Okay, let's go through this fun routine. Okay, so there we go. Yep. All right, we're good. So obviously, as I said, you can kind of say this slideshow is the one slideshow that actually, even though I'm just describing it, the fact that I also borrowed a few images, this is actually like the one slideshow that really stands out from a lot of the others. Even though I am calling it the Halloween special, you can also kind of say this is the slideshow that scares me as well. It definitely did take some work putting this together, even though it wasn't really that long. But just knowing the details regarding this, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. So, sorry, I thought someone just messaged me. Here we go. Oh, wait a minute, hang on, wait. I always gotta add a fade in. Bear with me for another second here. Let's try. Let's see if we could add that effect real quick. Okay, now let's try that again without where is oh wait, here we go. Alrighty, now we got it. So obviously, like I said, this episode is named after the paranormal witness episode, as I'm calling it also as well, Nightmare on Chestnut Street. And this is the actual house, but of course, obviously, due to it being a private residence, I had to block out the actual numbers because I don't want anybody to try to actually look for this house for a variety of reasons. Because either way, it would be disrespectful, and also I don't want all these I don't want curiosity seekers to try to look for it. So, but what I can tell you though is that this house is said to be one of the oldest houses in all of northeastern Ohio, as it was originally built in 1830, but it wasn't till over 80 years later, a horrific, terrible tragedy and crime occurred within the walls of this house. Due to it being and as like I just said, due to it being a private residence, and additionally, due to its history being so grim, the exact location cannot be revealed. In 1914, the house was once owned by one of the town's first doctors who had lived there with his wife. Over the years, their marriage had broken down, and she became unfaithful to him as she was having an affair. Upon discovering the affair, the doctor snapped and lost his mind. He horrifically attacked and killed his wife by hitting her, beating her, cutting her, stabbing her, slashing at her, mutilating her face before killing her. I mean, I couldn't find very many details about this murder, but just the way how it's been described, it was just an absolutely brutal and horrific murder. I mean, just no, almost like an animalistic like kill. I mean, it's obvious this doctor, whoever he was, did not obviously had no care the least bit of how she was gonna look after she died. It was just a horrific murder. And if that wasn't bad enough, to make matters worse, the doctor was never caught, convicted, or charged with her murder. And I don't know. No one knows exactly at least I don't know when exactly the doctor had died. it was even more difficult to even try to find the names of these people. But it's obvious though that the doctor, I mean, whoever he was, up until whenever he died himself, he remained at large. So I wish there was more. And trust me, I went through a lot of research trying to find more about this murder, but unfortunately, I just couldn't really find that much other than what they showed in the Paranormal Witness episode, and also what they had on the Paranormal Witness Sci-Fi page. So now we go right down to the ghost story, if you will. So, because of this horrific murder, in addition to being one of the oldest houses, it is also one of the most haunted in the state of Ohio. People have reported hearing moans coming from inside the house, and many believe it is the spirit of the wife crying out to be rescued from her psychotic husband. However, one group of college students of a nearby university would later come to find out for themselves she was more than just crying out for help. She had become angry, evil, and wanted revenge on the fact that her murderous husband was never brought to justice. Now, this is where things definitely start intensifying. This is where things really start. It starts getting really scary. Again, for those who haven't seen the episode. For now, understandably, because again, I got a lot of this once again from the episode and the pages, I wasn't able to really find photographs, really, of any of these college students in real life. So, I was able to get whatever I could. Again, mostly it's from the episode. For Lindsay, Rebecca, and Amber, the fall of 2004 was supposed to be their last year of fun before they graduated from college and had to face the world. They decided to band together and get a place of their own. It was rough to find a 3-bedroom place near campus, but when they landed in the office of a local realtor, their lives changed forever. Lindsay's boyfriend of a year, Adam, helped them move into what seemed like a dream house. When Lindsay finished putting everything in her room and she and Adam were ready to rest for a bit, she noticed something very unusual. Two large deadbolts on the back of her bedroom door. Exhausted, Lindsay and Adam shrugged it off and crashed. As she drifted off, Lindsay noted that the room got cold and she felt a breeze. When she looked, the fan in the bedroom was running. Nobody, of course, had turned it on. She tried to go back to bed, but it came on again. Confused, Adam got out of bed and checked. Here's the craziest part, only to discover that the fan wasn't even plugged in. While they were trying to figure that out, something began banging on the bedroom door. When they threw the deadbolts and opened it, ready to see Rebecca or Amber running down the stairs, of course, there was nobody there. That same night, Rebecca was desperate to finish a paper that was due when she could have sworn she had heard pounding on a wall. Trying to tune it out, she was finally fed up when it sounded like Lindsay and Adam were stomping down the stairs. She opened her bedroom door, ready to chew them out for disturbing her study, but stopped in her tracks when, of course, also nobody was there. Lindsay managed to finally get to sleep, but as soon as she nodded off, she realized she was dreaming. She was pinned to the bed, unable to move her arms or legs. She wanted to scream, but she couldn't. Next thing you know, she then saw a woman in the shadows, and when that woman got closer, Lindsay bolted awake. She was shaking, and her hair was plastered with sweat. Adam did what he could to bring her back to reality. I'll be honest, that first nightmare sequence, that was already starting to make me nervous when I watched it. I mean, I don't know of any other show that has ever done what this episode had done. Let me just see. I just want to go back quickly just to the comments. Just check up to give more shout outs. I need teddy bear. What? I'm not even touching that one. What's up, Nikki? Good to see you. What's going on, Erica? Oh yeah, what? Yeah, I remember you told me you saw that episode. It's a insane episode. Hello, Yvonne. Okay, so let's get right back. Oh, the other thing too is that although I'm kind of basically recapping that episode of that episode of Paranormal Witness, there is going to be I guess you can kind of say a bonus addition to this episode. What is not shown in the episode because, well, you'll see. You guys will see eventually. So just bear with me. Okay, so understandably, no matter, in spite of Adam's best efforts, no matter what, however, Lindsay could not shake the feeling that there was something else in the room with them. So now back to Rebecca. One afternoon, Rebecca was in her room taking a nap. When she rolled over to face the window, she was terrified to see a black spider crawling up the curtain. She backed away from it, unable to shake the feeling that something was using it to watch her. She took special note of a strange silver diamond on its back. This is an actual screenshot from the episode. Again, I thought using some of the screenshots would actually help out. But yeah, this spider had a silver diamond on its back. Soon thereafter, the spider just fell to the floor and disappeared. Rebecca tore her room apart looking for it, but found nothing. Spooked, she went to the library to go through books until she found out what kind of spider it was. And here's the crazy part, she couldn't find a single spider in reference that matched the one she'd seen. So that's obviously creepy enough. Rebecca went back to the house. Excuse me. Rebecca went back to the house to try to get some schoolwork done and soon heard the rumbling again. This time it was accompanied by a cackling laugh. Like from what I remember hearing the episode, it just like an evil, inhuman, just horrific laugh, just probably the scariest cackle that you've ever heard. Convinced it was Lindsay playing a prank, she tried to go back to bed. The next morning, Rebecca confronted Lindsay and Adam over the noise. She was convinced it was one or both of them making the noises that had kept her from sleeping. Rebecca shut herself off from her roommates, not sure she could even trust them anymore. Rebecca grew increasingly distant from her oldest and dearest friends until finally she moved out. Lindsay later revealed that she actually had. Oh, yeah, here's some stuff that was not featured in the episode. Lindsay later revealed that she actually had another friend move into Rebecca's room after she had moved out. This friend of hers had horrific experiences in the house, as well as later saying what happened in that house was horrible. I don't want to remember it or talk about it ever again. Jeez, and I'm already getting goosebumps already. Jeez. Late one night. Okay, now this is where things even get even more intense. Late one night, as Lindsay slept alone in her room, her TV suddenly turned on by itself, tuned to nothing but static. Lindsay turned it off, of course, and tried to go back to sleep. Suddenly, she heard a horrific sound and found herself back in the nightmare. And I can't even look at these images for just a few seconds. These are the actual, again, more still shots in the episode of this. I can't believe I'm even calling her this, but a demon woman, which I know she's not, but she obviously appears that way. Again, I know it's just dramatization, but the way how they described her, it's no wonder why she's called a demon woman, even though technically she's not. I think perhaps the reason why she looks demonic, as that's probably I guess her intention to appear that way, having a very frightening look. The woman in the shadows was there, and Lindsay knew that she didn't want to see the woman's face. Of course, when she said she didn't want to see the woman's face, that didn't stop the woman from coming so close that Lindsay could feel her hair. Hopefully you guys can see these images. I know they're kind of a little bit dark, but it was as best as I could. Of course, once again, when she bolted awake, screaming, Amber ran upstairs to talk her roommate back to reality. And I gotta say, just this woman, the way how she looks. I mean, obviously, I'm sure for those who haven't seen it, and I think some of you guys are probably getting the same idea I did. When I first saw her, not only was I feeling very unsettled by her appearance, but just the way how she looked. Obviously, she reminded me of the girl from The Ring. Now, additionally, get this. Again, more additional information that wasn't featured in the episode. Lindsay later described in another later interview about her nightmare in a more gruesome fashion. It always started the same. Me sitting in the house on the couch in the living room. Across from me, I would see this shadow appear. It would stay there for a moment before slowly drifting towards me. Her feet were hovering above the ground. It moved like a feather. It moved like a feather in the wind. No matter how I tried, I could not no matter how I tried, I could not move. I was frozen on the couch and I couldn't even turn my head. Suddenly, she would come at me, her long black hair still hanging in her face. Her arms would snap out to her sides like snapping open a pair of scissors. Her arms and head would stay perfectly still as slowly her feet began to rise up above her. Her body was in the shape of an upside down crucifix, but her head was still contorted so that her hair was hanging in my face. Her arms, feet, and torso did not move, but suddenly her hair would begin to part as if a pair of invisible hands combed it out of her eyes. Her features were dark eyes, pale skin, and as I looked at her face, I would notice that in part of her hair, a line was forming. This actually, even not just the episode, just reading this really, I think that just added further terror to me when I heard far more details about this. So she's talking about in part of her hair, a line was forming. Guess what happens next? Then it was as if out of nowhere, a razor blade sliced her face down the middle, a perfectly straight line. The skin would begin to roll back at the top of her forehead like old wallpaper peeling off the wall. It would continue to roll back until from beneath her pale flesh came the most horrific thing I have ever seen. I don't even know how to explain it. Take the scariest demon in a movie, mix it with a corpse, burnt flesh, sharp teeth. It was evil. It was the face of evil. This face would then come at me closer and closer. It would begin to almost bounce off me, and I couldn't move. This would continue until I woke up, and if I went back to sleep, it would start over the same way. That's just a complete never-ending nightmare. Occasionally in the dream, this is the only thing where she tried to fight back, according to what she said. Occasionally in the dream, I would muster the words to the Lord's Prayer. If I could say the prayer, I would be able to move my arms, eventually stand up, and if I kept saying the prayer, I could push her floating body out the front door. However, if in the dream I stumbled on my words or mixed up the prayer, she would almost become more powerful. Now, that's not it, obviously. One night when Adam was home alone, channel surfing, he suddenly didn't feel comfortable. When he got up and looked around, he realized that all of Lindsay's paintings that were hanging in the living room were staring at him. He ran out of his car and did everything he could to not look up at the windows. That's the thing that he said in the episode, was that when he was in the car, it was almost like there was like some kind of chant that was going on in his head. The same messages kept repeating, going in his head repeatedly. It's just, do not look up at that window. Do not look up at the window. Of course, unable to resist, he did, and saw the shadow of a woman where there shouldn't have been anything. Terrified, he called Lindsay. Obviously, he immediately drove away. He called Lindsay and told her what he'd seen, and they both knew it was real. I mean, he says in the episode, this whole thing was real. This woman was real. And I think one of the best lines in that episode was from Lindsay herself. And it's shocking to even hear it from herself, saying that she had seen this woman in her dreams, and now her boyfriend Adam had seen her in the flesh. Adam took Lindsay to see his father, a subdeacon in their church. Adam's father, of course, believed Lindsay immediately. He gave them a considerable amount of holy water and a religious icon for Lindsay to put in her bedroom. When they got back to the house, Lindsay sprinkled holy water in every room and hung the icon by her door. Amber, of course, on the other hand, because at this point she never really had experienced anything, she was the one that was experiencing the least amount of activity. She thought they were losing their minds, of course, so she was still being the skeptic. After they'd finished, the air felt as though it cleared. For the first time since they moved in, Lindsay felt comfortable in her own bedroom. I just want to go back quickly just to see, just give some shout outs real quick. Hello, Wayne. Good to see you. Goosebumps. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Okay. So, typical of such of these type of blessings, yes, it's always blessed. I mean, it's always good to get your house blessed, especially when you have some kind of negative entity in your home. But that doesn't always give a guarantee of, obviously, because in this case, which is no surprise, it wasn't over, however. One night, as Adam slept upstairs while Lindsay was downstairs, he woke to banging noises. Investigating, and of course, obviously, in the episode, he also heard her Lindsay scream downstairs. Investigating, he discovered that all of Lindsay's paintings that were hanging in the hall had fallen to the floor, save for one. Before he could even think about that, he heard Lindsay scream. He sprinted down to find her staring at more of her paintings that had come off the walls. Because of this blessing and because of this woman being in the house, it was obvious the house was not liking what they'd done. But Amber, of course, was still in denial that it was real. One evening, okay, so she was still in denial, but not for long. One evening, Amber rushed home from class for a quick bite before work when she heard something odd. She thought Adam or Lindsay might have come home, but obviously she was alone. Dismissing it, she headed out and got in her car and saw the shadow of the woman standing in the window, staring directly at her. It was at that point Amber finally believed. And again, this is an image I could look at no more than just a few seconds, because that is just such a terrifying image right there. I will at least say one thing I'll give credit for. I'm really surprised that that looks like a great shot for like some horror film poster, or even they could have even made a poster out of this episode alone. I mean, it's just such a frightening image of her being that shadowy look. So that is a great shot. Again, I'm like I said, I'm surprised no one has ever made like a poster out of it. That looks like a upcoming horror film poster. So now that finally everyone had experienced something, they all believed that everything that was going on was real. Adam suggested they all draw a picture of what they'd seen. They all so they all drew their picture, and as a result of what they drew, the craziest thing yet, they all drew the same person with the same description. So, as Adam described in the episode, the dark hair, the century old torn clothing, the gnarly, nasty looking sharp teeth, the pale the ghostly pale white skin, the growling, uh, the evil look in her eyes. See, and I'm really surprised that. Well, I'm assuming in the episode they probably didn't have the actual sketches, so it's too bad that they didn't. It's then again, it was several years after they moved out, so the actual sketches probably no longer exist. So once again, this is another scene from the Paranormal Witness episode. The so as a result of their findings, the trio went to the local historical society to find out what had happened in the house. They learned about the previous owners who lived in the house before them, almost 100, before them, 90 years prior, and the horrific murder of the doctor's wife. They all realized that. I mean, they all realized that she was who they'd been seeing. Okay, here's the scariest part on the entire thing. And I'm going to be honest with you, I only added one image to this whole scenario. There was no way in hell I was going to add that. There was no way in hell I was going to add that final frightening image, which I know is up. You could probably find it on Google Image. And I know also it's on IMDb. It's an easy image to find, and I cannot bear enough. Please, if you guys happen to find that image, please do not. I don't want anything to do with it. That's what makes it so scary. I just cannot bear with it. But I did add one scene from this dramatization, and I had to. That was as far as I was going to go, because there was no way I was going to be adding any more of this. So, the final part of the story, if you will. The next time Lindsay saw the woman, her theory that the woman was trying to make her feel the same terror she'd felt, was given even more backing. And this is the only image I decided to add. This is bad enough for me to look at, but I'll say right now, this is as far and as close as I will get to showing an image from that last part of the episode. It's terrifying. So, but what happened though was that I'm not just talking obviously with the story itself, the episode itself, but what really happened, the woman chased Lindsay from the bathroom to the stairway to her room, where she grabbed Lindsay's leg and began trying to yank her back. Adam saved Lindsay from the growling manifestation. Adam and Lindsay immediately ran to their room and locked the door. They then began hearing violent scratching on the door, along with the knob being turned as the woman was trying to get through to attack them. Oh God. Things began to get quiet after a few minutes, and Adam and Lindsay were wondering if the woman had gotten bored and was gone. And by the way, I'm going to just say this real quick. This episode looking back at the time that I watched it, I really, really regret it because, the first time I saw that episode, not only did it really freak me out, it was late at night. I think I had to work the next morning, but it didn't matter. I was watching this episode, everybody else was asleep. And the time when I was watching it, it was about like 4 years ago, I think I watched it. And we're talking about real late at night. I mean, I think it was about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when I watched it. And man, after I watched that episode, I mean, I turned it off after it was over and then went right to sleep, but didn't sleep that night. So, because this was the worst part of the entire episode. So, they thought that this woman had gotten bored and was gone. But here's what happened. Adam slowly unlocked and opened the door, but came across an absolutely terrifying scene. She was standing right in front of them, growling and roaring at them, ready to attack again. Adam immediately slammed the door shut and locked it once again. Oh my God. I don't know if you guys just heard that click. Oh, it's just the power machine. That that freaked me out a little bit there. that that was kind of a strange coincidence. So they never really explained what happened to them for the rest of that segment because it went pretty much right to the time that they were moving out. But what I assumed and kind of speculated, Adam and Lindsay spent the rest of the night barricaded in their room. But that was enough for all of them. They immediately moved out and never looked back. And other than from what you've seen in the episode and any follow-up interviews that they had following the production, I do know for a fact that Adam and Lindsay are married now. I know that for a fact. They kind of have reconnected with Rebecca and Amber. And I mean, things are definitely a lot more quieter now since they moved out of the Chestnut house, but they said it still was never the same even after they moved out. So let's see here. Okay, let me just go back real quick to the shout outs once again. Hey Kate, hope you're feeling better. I know we talked earlier. That's why I'm surprised you're doing this after what you told me. I'm actually surprised myself, Eric. Again, it's just so frightening. That's why I decided to make this essentially the Halloween special. Natalie here. It's nearly midnight here, and I'm not going to sleep tonight. Yeah, this, again, even this slideshow alone is scary enough. Scared of his house. Okay. So obviously, for some of those who've seen the episode, this is pretty much where it ends for these college students. But I'll tell you right now, there is a new chapter involving this house, which you guys are about to see. And for the first time ever, well, actually, wait, hang on. Let me just, before I reveal this. Since then, the current owners have not come forward if they had been experiencing any negative paranormal activity in the house. Now I can say it. At this point, there's a new chapter involved, not with those college kids, but involving someone else. So, for the first time ever, those new people who happen to kind of experience the next chapter of horror with this house happen to be myself and Tom McNicholas. That's right, folks. First time ever, me being in my own slideshow and talking about one of my own experiences. In 2020, 3 years ago, two paranormal investigators from Chicago, Illinois, myself and Tom McNicholas, paid a quick visit to the house while they were in town. I'm not sure. Oh, there we go. Now the picture's showing up. Even while they were heading to the house, I got this relatively eerie feeling, almost as if the house was expecting that we were coming. Oh, and by the way, just so you guys know, this photo that you guys see, it is kind of a creepy looking image. I actually intentionally made it black and white, but that's not the house. On the other hand, we just loved it so much because it had like a historical aspect to it. I thought it was a perfect photo to use, but that is not the Chestnut House. As a matter of fact, that house that we're standing on the porch of is, believe it or not, and definitely a more positive location. That is the Christmas Story house. As you guys can see, the leg lamp in the window. So, yeah, this was taken before we visited the house. And obviously, too, as you guys can see, because this was 2020, this was also during the height of COVID. So it was one of our very few out of state paranormal investigations that we did that year. So I don't know, and still to this day, I don't know how we were able to figure out exactly which house it was and how we were able to find it. I really don't. I wish I had a better detailed description or explanation for it. Again, maybe it was just curiosity, but for the most part, I don't know how we were able to find which exact house it was. So, because we quickly learned where the actual house was located, and again, due to it being a private residence, we were only able to park for a minute to take a few photos and quickly drive away. Tom had said on numerous accounts he did not report anything out of the ordinary while we were visiting. But for me, on the other hand, I did, however, I'm not going to lie, I did feel a growing sense of evil. I immediately had a feeling that we were being watched, and I knew it was not being watched by the current owners. I knew we were being watched by something else, and I just felt intimidated even out on the street because the house is actually up on a hillside, believe it or not. So even several feet down, it was still quite an intimidating area. I mean, a sight to see. And this is where I started experiencing my own nightmares, almost exactly the same fashion that you saw that Lindsay experienced when she was living in this house. Because later, when I got home, I began having nightmares similar to what Lindsay had experienced almost 20 years prior. I described her literally the exact same way as the college students. The dark long hair, the nasty looking sharp teeth, the huge black eyes, the almost skeleton like appearance, the growling, and the century old torn up white gown. It was just, I don't even know really how to even describe it. It looked like something out of like a true horror film. I mean, she even also kind of reminded me a little bit of La Llorona from Mexican folklore. She kind of looked like her. She was like a woman in white, but definitely had a very horrifying appearance. I mean, almost zombie-like, if you will. So, and as you could very well imagine, because we visited this house and fearing that, I really feared at one point that the woman may have actually somehow attached itself to me and followed me back to my house. So that's when I started getting really concerned. So because I was frightened by the possibilities, I immediately began to perform blessings on my room as well as myself, and also, of course, going to church in the hopes that it will remove whatever bad energy from the Chestnut House may have followed me back home. From what I could tell you right now, as of today, 3 years after the experience, the nightmares have thankfully subsided greatly, but I still get them every once in a while. Nowadays, when they first started, they were almost just as active as when the college students were living there. But now they occur almost once in a blue moon. So they're not really as active as they were a few years ago. And even though they have subsided, and I'm hopefully by now I'm finally free from this, I definitely do not want to let my guard down because I do continue to fight to do any means necessary to remove this evil energy. And hopefully one day, as it says in the slideshow, would be fully free of this woman's wrath. I'm really hoping at this point that perhaps most likely, because I haven't really had very much experiences or again like these nightmares like I used to. But you know, I think at this point I think it's probably safe for me to say that I'm pretty much declared free officially, but I'm still fighting basically whatever, with whatever I have to keep her at bay. Or but I'm mostly also hoping that, hopefully that whoever she is, knowing that I put all this protection around me, that she has gotten eventually bored and just left me alone. That's what I'm hoping for. So, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not really that concerned. I just know that it's definitely been a lot more peaceful, but I'm going to still continue fighting and keep my guard up because you never know if she could. I'll never know if she could ever return or not. But for now, I'm safe. So to kind of put this to an end to the story, because I do have to get off because it's already past 6 o'clock. Like I said, this wasn't meant to last for very long. But I will say this basically, as evil and terrifying as this woman is, you do have to remember, though, on the other hand, this woman was brutally murdered. Her life was taken too short. And obviously, I can understand why she's extremely angry, taking her anger out on everybody, making everyone's lives miserable. Again, like you guys saw, she obviously wants everyone to feel the same terror that she had felt when she was alive and when she was being murdered. So I'll just say one thing about this woman. Even though we know she's a very evil entity, I'll still say this regardless. Whoever this woman was, what she went through in life was absolutely tragic and horrific, that her life was cut short in a very brutal way. She truly wanted everyone and anyone who entered her former home to feel her pain, since her murder was never solved. She also doesn't, and here's the other thing too, and this is something she probably doesn't know either. She also doesn't seem to understand that it has been many decades and that her former husband is long dead. I mean, you have to remember this murder occurred over 100 years ago. So it's been 100 years after this horrific murder. And the doctor, even if he was never arrested or caught, he's dead too. And it's obvious to me, just from my opinion, my perspective, that she probably doesn't know that he's dead. But hopefully, maybe one day she will eventually come to that understanding, stop taking her anger out on everyone, and hopefully will find peace. But but only time will tell if she ever does. It could be an eternity before she ever finds out. But for now, she is here to stay and remains a very angry, dangerous, and terrifying entity, and will attack anyone that crosses the threshold of her former home. So truly an entity you don't want to mess with. And that is officially it. Just want to check if there was anybody else in the comments just before I get off. Okay. Well, it's relatively quiet, but it's not real terribly quiet. I know there's still a couple of viewers watching, but man, I gotta say, reading that entire story alone was terrifying. I don't know about you guys. You guys saw I was starting to freak out a little bit. This is literally one of the few locations out of all the locations I've investigated in my 18 years I've been doing this that it actually scared me that bad. Now, if someone was to ever ask me, would I ever investigate this place? I really don't know. I don't want to. I mean, normally I always do remind myself never to show fear when it comes to these locations. But for a place like this, I mean, just knowing how bad it was, the energy there, it was too much for me. So, I don't know. That would be kind of a tough choice to make if I had the opportunity. If the owners call me and want to investigate, I really don't know how I'd be able to respond to it. It's really hard to say. Obviously, there's another reason too why I also didn't want to reveal exactly where it was. Not only because it's still a private residence to this day, but most importantly, knowing how bad it is, I think honestly it's probably for the best. Um, it's really one of the few locations I probably wouldn't really, unless you're really experienced and know what you're doing, it's really probably a location that I wouldn't essentially, unless you know what you're doing, you have the experience and you know how to, fight back. For the most part, I never want anyone, even other paranormal groups and investigators, to go to this house and suffer the same wrath, especially when they don't know what they're dealing with. So if it was someone who had, association with the church, or somebody who knew how to fight back, or if it was a strong medium, psychic, clairvoyant, empath, any of those type of folks, maybe. But for the most part, this is not a place that is worth messing with. So yeah, definitely, again, truly terrifying location. Okay, well, I got to get off here another minute. As always, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Yep, and that proof that there was truly a nightmare on Chestnut Street. You are absolutely right, Jeremy. Oh man, I can't even say exact words for it. But anyways, I do have to get off another minute. As always, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. It's always a pleasure. For next, oh, okay, I'm gonna make this real quick then. Because this is the last episode for October, I am going to move forward a little bit with Nick Files for about 2-3 more weeks, right before Thanksgiving, and after once I get to that third week, and hopefully you guys will understand this, because you have to remember I've been doing this show now for an entire year with season 2, and honestly, I really, really need a break. So I'm going to be continuing on with the Nick Files for another 2 or 3 weeks, and then after that, I'm going to end season 2 of Nick Files. Even if we have to end for a part 2 or something like that, I still got to end it either way, because I've been doing this for so long, and I really need a break. So I just want to just give that heads up for you guys, because again, I put so many of these presentations together, and it gets really exhausting when you make so many of these. So I'll definitely give a lot more details when that time comes, but it's just best that I'd say something now while I still can. But for next week, we're gonna finish up. We're gonna go back to doing cryptids again. We're gonna finish up with part 2 of Alien Big Cats, or Phantom Cat, Alien, yeah, or Phantom Panthers, or cats if you want to call it. I don't care. So we're gonna finish that up, and like I said, I got a couple more cryptids that I'm gonna be presenting again. I got a full list already of other cryptids I would like to present, but until then, that's all I got to really pretty much say then. So, of course, I'm not sure what's going on to the Gravenback tomorrow. I got to talk to Lois about it. And but I know we'll be back tomorrow night with Supernatural Talk with Jeremy. We're interviewing Denny. I keep forgetting his last name, but we're gonna have Denny on, and it should be a good show. And I'll say this now. Yesterday's show, Fear Fans, that was just the first of several shows I'm going to be on for the next couple days. I mean, it is going to be busy. I got so many coming up, I can't even describe them all. I mean, that's how busy I really am. So, but anyways, with that being said, thank you guys all once again for tuning in. Like I said, as I always like to say, I not only just do this for myself, I do this for you guys as well. I'm glad you guys always enjoy these presentations. You find them fascinating, whether they're from a historic perspective, cryptid perspective, or this case, a scary perspective. I can't thank you guys enough. So, but yeah, but that's that's pretty much all I got to say. So as always, I know I'm going to end this now. I'll see some of you guys tomorrow, possibly for To the Grave and Back, if not Supernatural Talk. Or if not that, these other shows that I'll be on for the next couple days leading up to Halloween. But if not, and you'd rather just wait until and if you'd rather just want to wait till you see the next episode of Nick Files, I will see you guys next week. You guys all have a great night. And also, one final thing, because I think it's best that I say this now while I'm still alive. Happy Halloween! All right, you guys take care. Have a great night.